Hello again, most excellent time traveller. You've tuned in once again to my 1980s time loop, somehow. The last time we tuned in on this frequency, I took you on a tour of a most excellent retro gaming place called Games Galaxy in the northeast of England, here in the 1980s, which overlaps with your timeline in the future. It was full and stocked with amazing retro items from here in the 1980s. As I was taking you through some of those excellent games and board games from the 80s and 90s, and even some in the future which were like spaceships as consoles. As I was showing you through them, I did actually bring some home, so I got some pickups. So I'll take you through those right now. So let's get right. Out of all of those cool things I was showing you in the shop, the first thing I picked up is the most excellent, and it started in the 70s, the Dukes of Hazzard, but it's a game, and it's on something called, it's on the compact disc, but it's on something called a PS1 on a PlayStation, and it has 2001 on here, so that's long into the future. There's a long time before this comes out, but you get to experience the absolutely brilliant General Lee jumping over ravines and doing skids in the mud and through the countryside. And being in the 80s, this is, and especially growing up in my first experience of being in the 80s as a youngster, seeing that General Lee fly over all of those jumps was mesmerizing. It is arguably the most mesmerizing thing that you could probably see as a youngster. I will go that far in saying that that's what it felt like watching this and sitting down in front of that TV on the carpet and seeing this big orange car with a number 1 on the side of the car just jump over police cars, jump through barns. Absolutely mesmerizing, and I do not use that word lightly. I was so excited for that show to come on. I was absolutely glued when the Dukes of Hazzard would come on. Did you have the same effect when Dukes of Hazzard came on? How did you feel when those credits came on and all those jumps and the yeehaw starts coming on? I was absolutely amazed by it. Every single time it came on, I'd sit there. I absolutely love Dukes of Hazzard. The thing about the PlayStation, which I believe what happens in the future, and why it is on a compact disc, is that it means you don't have to do any more rewinding of the tapes, and it's free from that, and you don't have to do any loading, so you don't have to wait half an hour for a game to come on, and then come back to it like you would in the Commodore. This might be an old game to you, but this is very futuristic for here in the 80s, where we have Ataris and NES and things like this. So this is really futuristic to have, and a lot of the gaming for this looks like it'll mirror a lot of the show. So you'll have similar scenes following the Duke brothers, Bo and Luke Duke, and Daisy, and all the adventures that they do. You'll be pretty much doing these in the General Lee. So this is great. I mean, I think I'll just be sitting revving the engine and then just doing skids, and a lot of the time in this, and just doing jumps when I can. I mean, that scene on the back where he's just jumping over the river there is just jaw-dropping, especially when you're just going up. I'm not sure how the 2-player would work exactly, but the fact we're in a General Lee and we're jumping over things, that's good enough. But there is multiplayer options on that, which is brilliant. The second thing I picked up is, if I can put some of it in the shot, a stand for the most excellent Bang & Olufsen futuristic cyber TV BeoVision 6 on. Now this thing is from the well into the future. So some of the things that you have available to you from the year 2000s, maybe with your flying cars and robots for butlers that you have in the house, this thing should work with the BeoVision 6. So the BeoVision 6 came through Portal for me, and the screen on it is unbelievable. It's actually flat, so there's none of the CRT curves like you have here in the 80s. It's a flat screen, but the picture is something like I've never seen before. And you can put things in like DVD, or those things, if you have those. So I assume that you have those, possibly as brand new things in the future. You can play that with this particular TV. So this stand will work well with that. So prior to that, I didn't have the stand for it because it came through Portal and it didn't have the stand. So brilliantly, I managed to pick one of these up in Games Galaxy. Because they have Bang & Olufsen TVs in. So that was amazing. So I'm really pleased with that one. It's super durable, super heavy, and that polished chrome look looks excellent, as all the Bang & Olufsen stuff does. Really super high-end way to watch your movies, and I'm really happy. I'm really pleased with that one because I didn't have the stand and now I do. So that's a good pickup. Literally, the thing I picked up third is the excellent Thing by John Carpenter, and of course this cult classic came out a few years ago here in the 80s in 1982, and of course who could forget that with the unmistakable horrendous face on there, which is going to give every young child who managed to sneak in and watch it absolute nightmares. So I got a good VHS of this, which I didn't have in the collection, but now I do. And of course, if you're not familiar with John Carpenter's films, as it has on there, the director of Big Trouble in Little China and Prince of Darkness. Legend already is John Carpenter, so I assume he's even more of a legend in your futuristic timeline. Now, when this thing came out originally, a few years ago here in the 80s, it had restricted warning labels on it, and obviously for every horror fan, that's a bit of a badge of honour to be wearing when these horror films coming out. And when it did first come out, although the box office was a little bit of a flop with it, as soon as it's out on VHS, it has really become a cult favourite with fans. And the practical creature effects in this were somewhat groundbreaking just a few years ago here in the 80s. And I'm sure that even in the future, in your timeline, they'll still be getting lots of praise for how good that is. So yeah, big title, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. Really pleased to have that and put that in the library of films here in the Nightwolf Den. And some of the older viewers amongst us might even remember watching this and almost daring each other, friends who were watching at the time, to actually watch the transformation scene, such as the horrendous nature of the graphics in it and the gore. Is it gore? I guess it is gore. And I'm sure that in the future, in your timeline, this thing still holds up. This thing still holds up as an excellent piece of movie history, and I'm sure it still has the cult following in your timeline. So yeah, that's a great pickup. Still on the VHS vibe, we're going totally awesome, dude. Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. Hero, Ninja. Of course, here in the UK, the censors thought that Ninja was a bit too aggressive, offensive, whatever that nonsense is. So obviously in the UK, we got Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. But this is the case of the killer pizzas. So although the turtles are brandishing weapons and ninja things, they're heroes. So you can show swords and various other weapons, the staff but yeah, you can't call it ninja, which, yeah, whatever. But I picked up this one. This is amazing. This will go with the other Turtles videos that I have. It's looking good inside, and of course, who doesn't love the Turtles? And it's not just the case of the killer pizzas on it. You also get Enter the Fly. The Turtles' friend April O'Neil becomes a victim of the ultra nasty master Shredder. Of course, Shredder's probably in most of them, isn't he? So that's pretty obvious. And even with the dubbing on this, some of the UK ones would actually be overdubbing some of the words, so you'll hear slight differences to the US ones. And as in the case of the title, this would actually bring in some actual pizza monsters to the turtles' daily lives. You can see one sticking out the pizza box there. So they introduced these pizza monsters. So if you've ever been to a pizza place where they've got the buffet on, you could potentially turn into a pizza monster yourself very quickly, especially if they have the nachos as well. So these things have become a bit of a collector's item here in the 80s, and I'm sure they're even more so with you later on in the future. People like to pick up each of these different episodes of the Turtles on VHS, which is very rad because the Turtles are excellent. In fact, in some of the peak times here in the 80s, you'd have the video rental shops actually renting these out on Turtle marathons. So they'd be lending out all the titles in the school holidays for all the kids here growing up in the 80s to be hammering and watching, which is amazing. And of course, with all its synth lines and rad tunes, everyone at that age, when growing up watching these, was all dancing in front of the old CRT TVs with the most excellent music being blasted from the Turtles. So that's a great pickup. I'm really pleased with that one. And the last of the VHS that I picked up is this absolutely amazing film, which is out in the, when does it have on here? In the year 2000. So when you've probably got your flying cars and lace-up shoes in the 2000s, you have this absolutely magnificent film. And this is on X-Rental. That is obviously come through in the portal in Games Galaxy. And it's by Ridley Scott, which you'll know about from the Alien film, and his brother Tony, who's done the amazing Top Gun, of course. So this is a fantastic film, and I'm really pleased to get it on the big box X-Rental. With the X-Rentals, the tapes are made slightly differently, so they're a lot more durable. Not just the boxes and the solid casing for them, but the actual tapes themselves are made from a more robust tape. And of course, this being a VHS, if you're not on top of your VHS and giving it a cleaning of the heads and generally trying to maintain and keep it in good condition, tapes will get chewed, and it could be some really good ones like this, which are stuck in that video player. As I had Blue Thunder not too long ago being absolutely chewed up to bits in there. Thankfully, I could get another Blue Thunder. The amazing Blue Thunder. Let's get that out there. The amazing Blue Thunder. So yeah, you've got to make sure your VHS player is nice and spick and span, so there's no problems. A bit of tracking now and then isn't too bad, but if it's full snow and full dirt, it's probably going to get chewed up as well. And I couldn't believe some of the audio in this is next level. It really is. So I'm sure lots of Oscars and everything else is coming its way. And of course, Ridley Scott with Blade Runner as well, the legendary Blade Runner, which is the skyline for that is actually in the northeast again. The Middlesbrough skyline is kind of inspired some of the scenes in Blade Runner, which is pretty cool. So if you're ever driving past Middlesbrough, have a look over Middlesbrough, and that is where some of the inspiration from that came. So make sure to check that out if you go past Middlesbrough. Moving back to the gaming side, as well as showing you inside some of those really cool display cases with some amazing games and consoles and comics and cards and everything that they had in Games Galaxy. I did mention that it was there, but I also did pick it up. It is the Street Fighter II Tiger electronic handheld. If you're not familiar with these are very popular here in the 1980s, and they're seen as a bit of a budget to the Nintendo Game Boy. This is actually from 1992, so this is in the future. This is a futuristic toy for me here in the 80s. So this is seen as a bit of an alternative to the more expensive Game Boy and things like this, and the Atari and things. So this is a much more simplified game, which is based on LCD movements, and it really is simplified. So there's no combos, and it's just a lot of it's just timing and then reflexes. And you'll also hear some of the beeping KO sounds, which are notorious for these little items. And growing up in my original time loop of the 80s when I was younger, I remember having the Turtles one, and there was a Top Gun one. I had both of those two, and some other ones as well. I can't quite remember those, but I'm really pleased to pick this up. So and for more reasons than one, and I'll show you some of the why Street Fighter 2 I was so pleased to get this one. A little hint there. And how it plays with the LCD is it's like a layered set of images, and the characters kind of appear to be kicking and punching each other, and it plays like that. So it's not as advanced as a Game Boy, but it's still loads of fun and a really good cheaper option for people here in the 80s, or in this case in 1992. And these back doors are quite notorious for coming off, so there's a lot of sellotape and electrician's tape that's often fastened on there to keep that holding together. But this is a really good quality version of Street Fighter 2, so I'm really excited to have this one, to add this to the library. And you've got the nice rounded edges on these, so it's very comfortable to play. And generally you've got the left and right kicks, and you've got the special punch left and right, and of course you've got the D-pad with your jump left and right and down on the left hand side. And you can have the sound on and off, so if you had to be a bit quieter when you're playing, you've got that option to do that. And the difference with this and the Game Boys is this would get banned pretty quickly in class because of the simply that LCD noise. So you would just popping your head out of the trenches, and you would obviously get found out a lot with this, and then it was banned straight away. So you might get it back at the end of the lessons. But that is really cool. Some people weren't keen on them because they preferred the Game Boy, and it was a bit too simple for them, and it was a bit too it was a bit cheaper if you're used to using things like the Game Boy or the Lynx. But nevertheless, they're really good fun, and the artwork is what's really good about these. And if you can get a few of them, there's a good little collection. So really cool artwork. So I really like them personally, and I know when I was growing up how fun they were to take different places. And again, you could pick them up for not too much, whereas a Game Boy is a lot more, maybe £90 or £100. These were maybe about 15, and they're still coming out here in the 80s just right now, obviously. But in my original time loop when I was younger, yeah, they were really cool to have. So I'm really pleased to pick that one up again. Really good. Now, before we go into the really big item that I got as the grand finale of my pickups, which I was super pleased to see, I picked up a couple of Amstrad games. So we've got Star Command and Roland in the Caves, and I was told from Nick in the shop that these two are really good to have. So these were two staples of the Amstrad, apparently. So Roland in the Caves is part of like a quirky series, and Roland starred in everything from platformers to puzzles, and kind of like making him Amstrad's unofficial Mario, is it to what Nintendo is. One of the good things about the Amstrad when that was first out is that a lot of the games, or some of the games, were bundled with it as part of the overall system. So that was obviously really good to just get in and just immediately play those games. And of course some of the loading screens for these, because they would take a while to come on, they had some really wild pixel displays on them, and in some cases they were probably even more interested in the actual games themselves. A big mistake on what some people would do here in the 80s accidentally, or I guess maybe not so accidentally because they can tell you on it, but kids would use the actual tapes and then record over them to record like pop music on from the radio. People tend to do that here in the 80s, but obviously that ruins the actual game itself, which isn't great. But yeah, that's something that people here in the 80s tend to do. And with some of these tapes as well, you can get different cheat sheets from some of the magazines. Some of those games magazines can often show you some extras that you didn't quite know within the game, which is really cool. Another reason why games magazines are really cool. Maybe in the future you've got different ways of accessing things really quickly, but here, games magazines, to find out the lowdown on particular games was really big, and to find out about games in general. But hearing that tape fail halfway through that loading was absolute heartbreak. If you've experienced that on maybe not on the Amstrad, but maybe on the Commodores or another tape variant of consoles, it's absolute heartbreak if you get to that stage. But the joy of when it comes on, even if it takes half an hour to come on and eventually stop doing it, the joy of having that loading up and knowing that you're ready to play the game is fantastic, especially on some of the new games you get. It's still brilliant here in the 80s, and maybe it probably loads a lot faster for you, and you just have to press a button and it connects with everyone everywhere in the world very, very quickly. But here in the 80s, these cassettes take half an hour, so that's just how we roll here. This is one of the ultimate all-in-one computers here in the 80s. One of the cool things about this is that the monitor actually powers the computer. So it's got a couple of cables and they plug into there, and that's what powers it. There's no actual just a source by itself for this, which is really good. Gives it more of a plug and play feel. And of course it's not just games that are available for the Amstrad, which is generally that's what I'll be using it for, but programmers can use this to program various things, which is very cool. So it gives options for both type of people using this very cool machine. There's hundreds of titles for it, so I'll be able to be picking up some more games along with the Roland in the Caves, and what was the other one? Star Command, I guess. So I'll give those a blast, and on the next video I might well set this up and show you how I get on with setting it up. So I've got other consoles here, but this was one I would have liked to play, having played it on my friends when I was in my originally growing up before my time loops of the 1980s commenced. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this one, and I'm really looking forward to the green screen as well, so I really like that fact. So it's not just the colour, I think there's a nice style element to that. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the Amstrad. So a great pickup to get. And on the back of it there's different expansion ports on there, so they can be added as different add-ons for the computer, and you can have different floppy disks and light pens and different printers and various other things with it. So there's a lot of functionality rather than just sticking a game on and playing some of the most excellent games that are out for it. And there was a bonus pickup which Nick hooked me up with, which was really, really pleasing, is this really rad Spy Hunter style joystick or driving stick, and it's got Atari and Commodore on, so this is a zoomer, but I mean that's going to look good for some futuristic sci-fi games. Again, you might have these in the future, and you might have lots of different variations of joysticks, and you might have seen everything, but this is a really cool extra bonus pickup from Games Galaxy. So thanks to Nick for pointing this one out, and I was able to bring this one home as well. So all of those pickups equal a really good day out at Games Galaxy, and some really rad things. So thank you for tuning in again with me, Future Dude, and being with me while I take you through some of these most excellent pickups from Games Galaxy. And let me know which of these that you have there, or have you played the Amstrad? Which games have you used for it? And do you have any of those LCD games? Which ones have you tried? Have you tried any better ones? Because some people like them, some people don't. But what are your experiences with the Tiger games? I've got some more Tiger games to show you in future episodes, and in the next episode I could well show you trying to set up this Amstrad and trying to get one of those two games on, which is cool because I've never set up the Amstrad before, so that's something really good. Be sure to add my rad tunes to your playlists, however you listen to them, on your cassettes or however you listen to them in your timeline, or on vinyls, or or whatever, add them to your playlist and get rad with some 80s goodness. And I'll see you next time you tune in to the Nightwolf Den. But for now, stay rad, future dude.